Well, arms in the wrong hands or arms not properly secured, that is a problem. And we've had to bring up this crucial issue today because there have been two incidents that have raised concern about the operations of land guards, arms in civilian hands, and more. There has been that killing of a military officer at Millennium City, close to Kaswa, and then that recent incident at Trasacco with two police officers losing their lives. Our question, what exactly is happening? Why these developments? Where are people securing these arms? And what is the way forward to sanitize the system? Joining the conversation, we have a security consultant providing bespoke services in risk assessment analysis and forecasting, Professor Kwesi Enning. We also have JB Asante. He is Deputy Director, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. We'll also have, joining the conversation, Dr. Joseph Opoku-Ware. He's a criminologist at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Let me hear first from Professor Enning, just to be sure that we have you on board. Prof, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
All right, it's really good to have you. Dr. Opoku-Ware, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning to you, my brother. How are you?
I am very well. And let me also acknowledge in the studio, Mr. Asante. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
All right. Prof, so we are here again having a conversation about arms in the wrong hands or maybe arms being used in the wrong way. You've followed these stories. What is your fundamental understanding of what is happening? Is the problem escalating?
Well, I'm not surprised, but let me begin by expressing my sympathies and condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones. This will not be the last time. This is going to get considerably worse before it gets better. I think as a nation, we don't seem to see the small arms related challenges in the light that probably Johnson and I will see it. But this goes beyond small arms. It goes to state efficacy and the willingness of the state and those who control it to take the policy steps and measures to identify particular challenges that pose existential threat to the state and to do something about it. When I say this goes beyond the availability of small arms, I want to state this very clearly. In all functional society, when you take up arms against the state, it is the military that comes in with a robust response. But in situations where civilians are bold enough in broad daylight to murder uniformed officers, then that state is on a dangerous downward slippery slope to self-destruction. If we look at the last 24 months and the instances where small arms have been used targeting uniformed officers, not that the civilians who are routinely murdered using small arms is not a problem. That is also a problem. But because uniformed officers are those who are the buffer between ordinary citizens, the state, and chaos, whenever they are attacked, that has a much more disturbing set of implications. And the implications in this case is clear. That aura of prevention, of shock and awe is gone. People think they are connected, they are powerful in society, they are above the law, and therefore they won't only murder civilians, but now they will challenge the authority of the state by hitting at uniformed officers. Let me make it very clear, and there should be no misunderstanding about this. when you target uniformed people who should protect all of us, the response will usually be targeted and very robust. Okay? There are a lot of loose ends in this particular story that we are discussing, but it sends a chilling message to all of us that, look, you have nowhere to go except you run away. Otherwise, if we want to kill you, we will kill you. And I gave some telephone numbers, particularly in the Amanfrom area, Red Moro, Black Moro, Alaji, individuals who have over time terrorized honest citizens in these areas. But I think you made a very good point also as to whether these guns are in wrong hands and whether they are insecure. I will leave Johnson to talk about that. But we have a problem of stockpile management in Ghana, with the exception probably of the police service and the Ghana Armed Forces. Stockpile management has become a problem over the past decade or more. And it's going to get much worse, much worse, because vigilantes seem to have a certain legitimacy in our society.
But Prof, you just used the word vigilante. You are fully aware that per the law, at least on the back of Ayawaso West Wogon, we are not supposed to have vigilante groups in operation. We're not.
Yes, but they are all over the place.
Land guards and all that. So what does that mean? Even as you use the word vigilante.
What it means is that the state's capacity to implement its own laws passed by Parliament is almost non-existent. That's number one. Number two, or that those who ought to see to implementing the law are themselves either not doing their job well or they are using some of these guys. So in the last two major studies that we have done, it is clear that vigilantism is still present and growing. That's number one. Number two, their services are in demand, and the overlap between vigilantes on one side and land guards on the other,
right, is
that we are seeing a franchising of the violence across the country, whether vigilantes or land guards. This is going to get much worse. And you and I will have these conversations several times.
Prof, interesting way to kickstart the conversation. Hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Opoku-Ware as well. He's a criminologist at the KNUST. I'd like to find out, you've also followed the story. What do you make of it, especially the killing of the police officers? It has a certain appearance. I will not take words out of your mouth. And then the killing as well of the military officer. First off, what do you make of it? And in terms of the investigative processes, what you've seen so far, are we on the right track?
Right. Thank you very much. And very good morning to you and also to my colleague panelist, Professor Enning, and also my friend Johnson. I think whatever has gone on, I've always said over the period that whenever crime is occasioned, you have to look at the ingredients of the crime. And if you look at what has actually happened to the two police officers and the scenario, if you look at the chain of events, I mean, as a criminologist analyzing this whole crime scenario, it seems to me that there is an act that was procured, to be committed for whatever reason, basically because it does look like the perpetrators have some acts to grind with the police people. And I mean, Professor Enning couldn't have said it much better. These kind of acts is to communicate a certain message into the psychology of people that for whatever it is worth, we can come after you even if you are a security agency and you have no place to hide. So it is something that has built into the psyche of people, to send some messages to people all over the country that, look, no matter what you do and whoever you are, once we feel that you have gotten to our wrong side, we can come after you irrespective of who you are, whether you are a security agency or even you're a civilian. And for me, that is what is so worrying especially when it's becoming like a pattern in the country over the period where you have people who can actually attack security men and law enforcement agents. And I've always said over the period that, look, the police especially are known to perform two set of functions. You know, they are seen as warriors and as guardians. And are warriors where they have to come in, you know, to quell any kind of, you know, insurgency or any kind of, you know, act that seems to, you know, pose security to the people. And they're also supposed to be guardians where they guard the life and the property of people. And now if these people themselves cannot guard their own life, they cannot even guard themselves, then it becomes a problem. And it's a signal that is being sent to the people that, look, you have a weak state and you have a weak law enforcement agency for which we are in charge. So look at what is happening in Haiti, you know, where these kind of hoodlums and gangs, you know, have been able to usurp the authority of the state, especially. And it started like as we seen it, you know. So it is something that I think that as a state, we need to get our hands on it quickly and get the investigation going. Looking at what has happened, I think that these are crimes that, you know, we shouldn't just allow it to be, and we must be able to bring the full force of the state to investigate these crimes and get the perpetrators and send a signal to the whole country that, look, no matter who you are, once you touch a law enforcement agent, we can come after you and the law is going to deal with you. That is the message I'm expecting the police service and all the security agencies to send across to the country.
You talk about these developments. Of course, one of the crimes for which you may suffer the stiffest penalties has to do with, you know, assaulting or taking the lives of law enforcement agents anywhere in the world, and Ghana is not different. But a quick point I want to get your thoughts on. When it happens like this, what will be the initial processes? I think one gentleman has been apprehended for investigations and all of that. What would the police likely be looking into in terms of the criminal investigations and the likely motivations of such people?
Good. So, you know, for every murder, it is important that the police move in quickly, especially to secure the scene and to be able to gather evidence. So the first thing is to establish the motive. So in criminological sense, there's something we call the 3 Ws, where we have to look at what we call wine, women, and wealth. So you have to look at whether the motive is motivated by somebody who was even drunk, you know, in terms of, you know, just going about their normal duty and then they had to commit such kind of acts. You have to look at women. Have these people even crashed, you know, in terms of having some relationships with women and all that? And you have to look at wealth. Okay, is it about money? Is it a deal gone bad? So these are the things that the police will have to look at. So if you look at what is happening or what has happened, especially with the police scenario, I want to ask, what has been the relationship between these police officers and the supposed perpetrators? Looking at the nature of the crime, it presupposes that the perpetrators knew the victim over the period of time. And therefore, it is very important that the police first move in to establish, you know, the motive of the crime. Once that is done, then they need to establish and get all the evidence. So at the crime scene, what evidence have the police gotten? Have the crime scene been contaminated? Have people moved in, you know, to disturb the scene? Have the police themselves moved in? These are very key things I'm expecting the police to have done. Were they witnesses? And now if they were witnesses, what are they saying? What are the people telling you? How are the people within the community saying? So all these things are things that I think that the police will have to, you know, quickly move in and get their hands on. So that once they're able to get these, it is very, you know, likely that they can be able to follow all the leads and get you know, the perpetrator. So this is something that I expect the police to quickly have their hands on.
Right. Thank you. Hold for me, Prof. Hold for me, Dr. Opoku-Ware. Let me come into the studio now. J.B. Asante is here as well. He's Deputy Director, Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. How concerned are you that these things are happening? And especially when you look at the failures of a place like Haiti, and you have one of our guests, Dr. Opoku-Ware, mentioning our situation in the same breath as Haiti. That is a cause for worry. How did we get here?
Thank you very much. Let me say good morning to Prof. Enin and also Dr. Opoku. It's very, very worrying and very unfortunate, I mean, what is happening in the country currently. I think we all agree that definitely what happened to the two policemen. Definitely you realize that, just as Dr. Opoku rightly said, some people are not happy, or somebody has some misunderstanding.
An axe to grind.
An axe to grind with these people. And like what happened in around Tema, you see that people are not happy with the security agencies. And so they think that the best way out, is to pull the gun on them. But definitely that is not the way to go, and that is really a dangerous move to make. You see, we realize that when these things happen, usually innocent people, they are the ones that become casualties.
Yeah.
I was listening to the news, and I heard some people around Kaswa, Millennium City, who are apprehensive. They are worried because they think that the security agencies may, come there and do all kinds
maybe
of
some sort of reprisal.
some reprisal, and all that, reprisal attacks. So definitely that is not the way to go. And we know, and we have heard in other countries where civilians had problems with the security agencies or even with government or the state, and so decide that they are going to pull small arms, and we know what happened so many years ago in places like Liberia and Sierra Leone, where we have civilians, because they have issues or an axe to grind with the state, decide that they will take up arms and then fight, the state. But eventually we know those who became casualties and those who suffered, women, children, and all that. So obviously, as a country, we should be worried, and as a commission, just as you rightly said, arms in the wrong hands is something that is very, very worrying. And we will want to speak to especially the youth or people who think that taking up the arms, is the solution to our problems or the way to go. Now, after they've done what they did, they've bolted away or they ran away. Why? Is it because they are afraid of what will happen to them? Exactly, you cannot do these things and go scot-free. So definitely, this is not the way to go. Let us talk about it. If we think a security officer has done something that is not right or that is untoward, let us talk about it. But we don't resort to the use of firearms and, we go attacking them, killing them and all that. That is very, very unfortunate. And if you look at the Kaswa incident also, for example, this is clearly an act of somebody trying to fight for his property. You think, the land belongs to me, what are you doing there? But is that the way to go? I have always said, and it has been happening, you hear one person selling a piece of land or a parcel of land to more than one person. And then I meet you on the land. And instead of the two of us coming together and get the person who sold the land to the two of us and making sure that he's dealt with, and if one of us is a matter of one of us getting our money or both of us getting our money, we will rather fight and kill. And then we leave the person who actually did what he did to go scot-free. So look at what happened at Kaswa. You see, when you have the weapon, it gives you this false impression about yourself. I don't know what the gentleman really was thinking when he pulled the gun and he decided to fire. Now look at where he finds himself. So I think we need to be patient. We have all kinds of issues. We have misunderstandings. Conflict is part of us as human beings. But the way to go is not to resort to the use of weapons because it has all kinds of implications, which even, people who have nothing to do with what has happened also become casualties, or they also, suffer one way or the other.
I have a quick question for you. Two quick things, because I'll go back to Prof shortly on some crucial matters. But you remember the Bengilo incident? Do you remember? From way back, that incident with the shooting, and I thought you would.
That took him to jail.
Yes, you remember that incident, and a bit of passion here. I am wondering, and it may also have to be with the fact that people are not acquiring weapons a lot of the time through the laid down mechanisms. They're acquiring them on the blind side.
Yes.
But if you have a firearm, you must exercise the utmost restraint.
Exactly.
Else you end up doing something that will
you regret
that will
for the
land
rest of
you
your life.
in grave waters. And
exactly.
By mentioning Bengilo, I'm not insinuating anything. I was just casting our mind back to that issue. Now, what arms control mechanisms are in place for people who legitimately have arms, and for people who don't? What then applies? As in, have legitimate reasons, they've gone through the processes and have the arms. What are the mechanisms in place?
Okay, so at the end of every year, your license expires.
Right.
And you have to go back and renew your license.
Right.
And so when you go, you must give some account as to how you've used the weapon and all that. And then also...
whether you fired any...
No, yes, whether you fired any of the bullets and all that, and for whatever justifiable reason why you did that, these are things. So from the records, that we have with the police, hardly will you find someone who has a legitimate or a licensed weapon using it to commit a crime. The ones that usually happen has been ones that have happened out of the person not being able to exercise restraint, just as you said, for which reason, as a commission, we even advise that if you know that you are hot-tempered, if you know that you are not that emotionally balanced, we will advise you don't even go through the process for a weapon, or don't even get a weapon in your life, because it is likely to put you into trouble. So we realize that those who go through the process and acquire these weapons, they make sure they use them for legitimate reasons, the reasons why they acquire them. But usually those who don't acquire them legitimately, they are the ones that we find them using, to commit all kinds of atrocities. Even now, if you go through the legitimate process, you are given some kind of training, even as to how to handle the weapon, how to maintain the weapon. They speak to you how to even, exercise your emotions to make sure the same gun does not put you, into trouble. So that is something that now, as we speak, the police is doing, even though it is not in the law. And we are reviewing the law to make sure that even before you are issued with a license to procure any weapon, you are taken through some kind of training where you learn all these the necessary things that you need to know about the weapon.
Is that to say that as of now, that is not being done?
It is not in the law. So like I said, administratively, the police, they have started. They will take you through some kind of training, but it is not in the law. But we want to make sure it is captured in the law, so that anybody who applies for a weapon, you'll be taken through, all the necessary training that you need to know, so that you'll be very prepared, to use the weapon in the rightful way.
Professor Enning, what Mr. Asante just said, how does it feed into the problem we're facing now? These aspects that may not necessarily be in the law, the police is trying to do its bit in there, but that means there are some gaps, some lapses. Your take?
No, there are lots of gaps and lapses. And I think, if Asante has presented to us the bureaucratic, technical explanations around acquisition, registration, re-registration, and following the law. But we must also put into the equation, politics and the nature of the state. And by the time we finish, I want to make an appeal to the military directly about how, in the Amafrom area, this Black Moro or Omar Ali is masquerading as a warrant officer, occasionally brings people who are also in military accoutrements to intimidate people. So this goes beyond decent Ghanaians who, either for hunting purposes or for any other purpose, want to acquire a weapon. And as Mr. JB says, we normally encourage people, look, please don't go get a weapon, because in situations of anger, in situations where, something, you may use it. And the propensity to use it is, most people also acquire weapons and they don't have a safe storage place at home. So we normally don't encourage people to do this. But what we are seeing is not about people who have acted in anger. And I like Dr. Pokuware's point, the usage of the word to procure. To procure something is a deliberate decision that one makes to say, I want a bottle of Coke. I want a new phone. So you work towards procuring that particular thing. Now, when the value of what is to procure touches on identity, wealth, then people are prepared to do all kinds of things. Now, I may seek to procure something, but that may not lead to using violence to procure that thing. Secondly, when you seek to procure something and there is a stumbling block, and that stumbling block deals with somebody's life. In all law-abiding society, you don't go around and take that person's life. But it becomes extremely dangerous when, in seeking to procure that thing, you feel that you are above the law, you are well connected, nobody can touch you, and therefore you deliberately and consciously, you probably, Dr. Pokware can give us the criminological terminology here, you make a deliberate choice to express that power that you have by challenging the authority of the state, and therefore you murder somebody. Now, if it was the firing of one shot out of anger, and then when the person got hurt, you decided that, oh, hey, what have I done? I need to pull back. But when you fire 7 shots, okay, then we need to interpret that clearly. But there's another disturbing side to this. This Abedeo character masquerades as a traditional chief, based on the report that we have read. 2, that we are not sure whether he's a national security agent or not. Now, if we go back to the Aisha 1 case, where different state agencies couldn't tell us whether she had left Ghana, how she came back, whether we seized her passport, what was her plane seat number, then we cannot have the murder of a representative of the state in which multiple state agencies are telling us different things about the identity and the institutional affiliation of that. That sends a signal, and I think it was JB who said this, that the people of Kasua and Millennium City are frightened. Because when the state speaks with multiple voices about a dangerous criminal act, as we have seen, then the state's behavior even sends shivers down people's spine. So, is this character a chief or not? Can individuals declare themselves or crown themselves as chiefs in a community where there are legitimate traditional authority who don't challenge him? So we need to find out and answer those questions, because then that undermines traditional authority.
Right.
And 2 is that, do we have national security operatives that the national security institution itself is unaware of, including the minister? Number 3.
In other words, people masquerading as national security officials when they are actually not.
Yes. Okay. And this speaks to the larger question of the political recruitment into state agencies, and particularly into the security service. And we saw this during the Emil Short commission relating to the Ayawaso West Wogon case, where some telephone operator at Circle has even become one of these operators. So this particular incident speaks to how the state works and the way the state itself perceives its national security institutions and the space with which they have to act. My final point. If you talk to anyone from Liberia, from La Côte d'Ivoire, and from Sierra Leone, they will tell you that prior to the violence or the wars in their country, they did not experience the levels of randomized societal violence as we are seeing in Ghana and the use of firearms. I mentioned vigilantes in my first submission because all these land guards who are running around will transmutate into the vigilantes from around June, July, August. Okay? Their services will be used. So let me sound a note of caution. When people support individuals to get access to power, over time, they will decide that they want the power for themselves. And I don't buy the argument that the murders that we are seeing in Trasacco, the murder of the soldiers, and that's what I said, if we go back to the past 5-6 years, the number of times that people have attacked soldiers or police officers or customs or prisons officers, we are looking at a very disturbing development over time, in which the deterrent posture of security forces it's almost gone.
Right.
Okay. This is dangerous. This is extremely dangerous, and we should be cautious.
It's extremely dangerous. We should be cautious of it. Prof, when I come back to you, I'll have 2 final points and then we can conclude. But let me go to Dr. Opoku-Ware on this one. From the general standpoint then, Doc, how can we contribute, the generality of society? What do we do to stem the tide of these happenings? What should we know? How should we be addressing the situation? And in a place like Millennium City, where people are now afraid and all that, when these incidents happen, how should, on a psychological level, how should people deal with the situation?
Okay, well, I have said a number of times about Kasoa because as part of my PhD studies, it was one of the places that I used as my study area. I had to go live there just to understand the criminal dynamics of that place. And I remember in 2021 where we had these issues of these young boys who had to murder their friends. When the issue came up, I sounded a note of caution that Kasoa, based on my findings and my research, is a place that is more like a time bomb waiting to explode, because this is an area where the spatial characteristics as we have it has created what I call a criminal subculture. There are even places within this area where people dare not pass there at certain times of the day. Okay, where we have certain elements and gangs who have declared certain portions of these places unto themselves as their areas, where they forbid people to use those places because they think that they have the power to control those areas. And you see, as I earlier said, when you have a subculture that has built over a period within a certain area, it sends a certain psychological effect into the minds of the people that, look, for these areas, we are on our own. We will not be able to, we have no protection. And that is what is manifesting within the Kasoa area, where you have these gangs of people. And look, let's be very honest. If you look at the crime data and the crime statistics, in fact, I've been perusing the crime data for Kasoa division alone from 2017 to 2022. And look, you will be surprised about the patterns of, land guards and this kind of sales of, land, double sale of land, and this kind of trespassing situations within the Kasoa area, which is known to the police. So I asked myself, why is it that the police within the Kasoa area, knowing some of these things happening year on year, have not been able to get hold of it to assure the people within the Kasoa area that, look, when it comes to this place, we are in charge, and whatever it is, we can be assured that we can protect you. That is what is baffling me over the period, because look, if you look at the crime statistics, and I have to be very honest, though as a criminologist, I don't rely solely on crime statistics because of what we call the dark figure. I think that the patterns as demonstrated by the police data itself should send, shivers down the spine of every security agency operating within that area that, look, this is not something that we have to just sit on. Because look, if you look at the scenario that has happened, the criminal guy, the guy that has been arrested as having committed a crime, I'm sure the people within the area know him. I am sure that his activities is known to people within the area. So why is it that the police have over the period not, gone in for this guy? For them to wait for somebody to be murdered before now we say we've moved it. And when you have a security agency operating with that kind of, system, it creates a problem for everybody. And for me, that is what I think we have to look at. For the people of Kasoa, they have endured this over the period of time. And it is high time as a people, as a security agency, we go in to reassure the community. The community must also on their own And I think that this is very key. In every community, they must build social support systems.
Right.
Systems where they can provide information to each other and also provide information to law enforcement agencies in a very timely manner. And we expect that once they do that, the security agencies must be able to get up and act and assure the community that, look, we have you, we can protect you, and we can guard your life and guard your property. If you don't do that, I'm telling you, people will get up and now they will arm themselves. And this kind of gun proliferation we've been talking about, resulting in these kind of murders, will continue in the quest of people, to also protect themselves and also protect their property.
Gentlemen, this will be the final round where I pick your thoughts on concluding issues. For you, Mr. Asante, so amnesties that you've had in the past, tell us about them, because these are supposed to rid the system of, mop the system of arms that have not been properly registered. What have been the responses of some of these people? What has gone into that? And what is the way forward for the commission? What can we expect you to do in aiding our security officers actually avert such situations?
You made reference to the amnesty.
Yes.
Yes, I know the last one, I think, was done in 2016. That was about 8 years ago. Unfortunately, that did not yield the kind of results that we were expecting. But I also think that certain things did not go well in the planning because there wasn't much publicity. So I think that is also one of the things. But apart from that, I think we should also understand that when it comes to gun amnesty and someone has a criminal intention and is keeping a weapon, he will definitely not bring it, because the whole idea is that for ordinary citizens who probably didn't know the law, and so they acquire these weapons without going through the right processes, we give you the window of opportunity to come and regularize your weapons, register your weapons, so that the police will know that you are keeping these weapons and you are keeping them for legitimate reasons. But for someone who has a criminal mind and is keeping a weapon for a specific kind of crime, no matter what you do, the person will not, bring the weapon. So as a commission, we realize that there is a need for a lot of public education and awareness raising. People's perception about the possession of a weapon itself, it's something that we need to deal with. So we are taking opportunity to educate or sensitize, the civil society for them to understand that there is no way we can use weapons to resolve our differences or, to bring about the kind of solutions that we want. There is no way we can, use the weapons to do that. We know what has been happening, even in Ghana, in some part of Ghana, we know where people have pulled weapons and they've been fighting and killing one another. It has not brought any solution. So we want to be able to reach out to majority of Ghanaians for them to understand that the gun is not something that we should resort to when we have any misunderstanding or we have any issue.
So the barrel of the gun is not the solution. But
yes.
Quick one, how then are you also dealing with the local arms industry? We all know there are manufacturers in here and they're getting better and better.
Yes, it's actually, the situation has actually gone down because as a commission, what we decided to do was to engage these blacksmiths. It's not all of them that manufacture, but a few of them. So the idea was to engage, the whole, blacksmith. We are trying to put some of them into associations. We are, educating them for them to understand the implications of the things that they are doing, which has brought the situation down drastically. We are also trying to look at the source, the source of these weapons. We know that looking at the porosity of our borders, some of these sophisticated weapons are able to come through, our borders, even sometimes through the Tema port, and we know that some of our own compatriots outside are also parties to these things. They see it as a business opportunity, so they will smuggle these weapons into the country, sell it, and make their money.
But you say it's on the decline.
I mean, with the issue of the blacksmith, that's what I'm saying.
So that one is
on the decline, yes, because of the engagement that we are having with them. And now, as a commission, we are also moving to the borders. We are at the Tema Harbour, to collaborate with the security agencies to see how we reduce or prevent, the smuggling of these weapons into the country, so that they don't get into, a lot more wrong hands, for the kinds of things that we are seeing to continue.
Right, Prof. we're pressed for time, but I wanted to address two issues very quickly for me. The role of landguardism come vigilantism in this, what threats it has, especially as we're in an electoral year. And secondly, is it, and I'm being very sensitive here, I'm not insinuating anything, is it that, are there certain things that our security officials themselves are also doing that is putting them in harm's way or opening them up to some of these happenings? Quick thoughts on that? Hello, Professor Ening.
Yes, very quickly. Number two, I mean, if we take the Senyabri case, for example, in which 3 officers were arrested, beaten up by the community, the people in power and authority must not use state institutions for their personal pecuniary benefits and interest. Because when they do that, that undermines the professionalism and then the distance, that we want from these institutions. Landguardism stroke vigilantism is going to basically get worse. It will get worse until December 7th, 8th, 9th, and it will escalate in January dramatically, depending on how the results of the elections are going to. These two phenomena that are symbiotic will grow because violence in our society has become a currency, and the demonstration of blatant violence, the lack of law, norms, shows that people will go for this type of thing to resolve their challenges. But I want to make an appeal to the Ghana Armed Forces, particularly its leadership. Please go to Amanfro and go and pick up Black Moro, alias Omar Ali, or warrant officer, who is using the name of the Ghana Armed Forces to sell lands, intimidate people, and break down people's houses. Were somebody to contact me, and I think I gave the details to your producer, there are people there who are making life hell for ordinary, honest, tax-paying Ghanaians. Please don't allow Omar Ali alias Black Moro to tarnish the reputation of the Ghana Armed Forces by engaging in organized criminality related to that. I have the information, others have it, they are willing to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Doc, your concluding thoughts on this?
Yes, I think that as Prof has said, we need to get our acts together, especially for me in Kaswa. I think that the security agencies will have to deploy more resources there. They have to get a hold of the land guard situation there, especially when some of these land guards, as I've come to know, are basically not even Ghanaians. And they are people affiliated to certain nationalities within the West African sub-region, and therefore has no familiar or network ties with the people there. So it is very important that we move in, try to break every network of criminality there, and make sure that the place is well secured for the people of Kaswa. Thank you very much, and this is how I want to end.
Thank you too. The last person I'm going to bring into this conversation when we hear from him that it's done is Superintendent retired Peter Tobu. He is member of the Defense and Interior Committee. A very good morning to you, Mr. Tobu.
Good morning, Agogo. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I hope you are too.
I'm doing great. My regards to Professor Ening and Doc. I've been listening to them, and it's quite impressive.
Right.
Their suggestions and statements made.
So let's start from what you know, the work the police is doing, where you think we're getting it right, where you think we're getting it wrong, and what the way forward should be.
Thank you very much. Let me say good morning to your cherished viewers. When we are looking at internal security or national security in general, we should be mindful of the fact that the economy and national security are going to be continuously, intimately intertwined. Because without security, we cannot have economic progress. And sometimes when you find positive macroeconomic fundamentals or the economy is doing so well, it reflects positively in security. When you see signs of insecurity, trace it. You will get to realize that the economy is not doing well. So economy and security are like a husband and wife. If one is suffering, the other one reflects that. What is happening in this country today? The economy is not doing well, and that is why we are on an IMF program. So for me, professionally, I'm not surprised when you realize that very frustrated young men and women in this country who do not see any hope in their own lives, and the fact that we have proliferation of small arms and light weapons in the system, people think that they can survive via the weapon, unfortunately. But that is what we are seeing. In an economy where the dollar has crossed the 15 Ghana cedi mark, it's not a good sign for any businessman. It's not a good sign for even any student. In an economy where doomsday is back and biting hard, it's not a good sign. In an economy where youth unemployment is the greatest threat to our national security, it's not a good sign.
But the economic threat, Peter Tobu, the economic angle, while it is valid, does not justify crime, does it?
There is no justification for crime under any condition. But I'm just telling you that there are things that happen and you expect insecurity. So these are some of the things that are happening in the economy, and there is so much pressure in the system that criminality is beginning to rear its head beyond control. Whatever it is, we all have to agree that security is a collective responsibility. I've listened to the Small Arms and Light Weapons Commission, I've listened to Professor Enin, and I'm saying that what is happening now, anytime you find civilians turning guns onto the men and women who are in uniform to protect them, it spells desperation, because it is going to demotivate the men and women in uniform, and gradually it will come back to hunt even the civilians who are hunting the men and women in uniform. Because I am supposed to protect you. I've been trained to do that. I'm being paid to do that. The state empowers me to do that. So if you threaten my life and you shoot and kill me and cow me into submission, every other person is at risk. So what we are seeing, when you find that one uniformed man is shot and killed, be it soldier or police officer, the state is under attack. And I will expect the Inspector General of Police and the CDS to rise on this occasion and show force. That force that is required, that minimum force that is required to subdue criminal elements in society. We shouldn't sit down and watch them. It is possible we can do it, and I know we have the capacity to subdue them. We also cannot do without artificial intelligence. I remember the Alpha Project being spearheaded by the National Security Ministry. What is happening to that Alpha Project? I am quite convinced if the Alpha Project was working well, and Trasacco area is well connected to the National Emergency Command Center, you shoot and you kill, and camera captures you. I am sure that they can track you within 30 minutes, wherever you find yourself on that motorbike. Either you be gunned down or you be arrested, to show that we are right on point and we are right in line with technology. But until then, we have a lot to do. I will want to make some few suggestions.
Okay, briefly, Supo, briefly on those points. Right.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead. I'm just saying briefly on those points.
Yes, I want to make some few suggestions. I will plead with His Excellency the President that the connection between economy and security are very tight, and he should just relieve the head of the economic management team of his position. Find somebody with a modicum of credibility and understanding of this relationship to head the National Economic Management team. I also want to plead that there should be an emergency National Security Council meeting to digress a bit into how relationship exists between the Ghana Police Service, the Ghana Armed Forces, Immigration Service, inter-security collaboration. And the last point, the Inspector General of Police, in consultation with the Police Council, should begin to think about these three directorates: police operations, police intelligence, police CID, police patrol, police traffic, and above all, the welfare directorate. These directorates should be communicating.
Okay. And
the Inspector General of Police should look at it critically, because morale is very important if you want to fight crime. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much, Peter Tobu, Peter Lansheni Tobu. He's a member of Parliament, member of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, joining us for the conversation. Thank you so much, sir. We also had joining the conversation Professor Kwesi Ening, security consultant providing bespoke services in risk assessment, analysis, and forecasting. In the studio, we had J.B. Asante, Deputy Director, Policy Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation. He's with the National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons, and criminologist at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. I'm talking about Dr. Jones Opoku-Ware. All of them joined us for this conversation. It matters to them, it matters to all of us. The way forward, well, you've heard the conversation. But stay with us. Up next, we're also looking as the EC opens up its registration exercise for those just turning 18. We know that every electoral season marks a new chapter in the journey of democracy, with some taking their first steps into that voting booth. Well, Joy Prime and Joy News introduce Just Turned 18. I remember when I turned 18. It's a new show diving into the hearts and minds of first-time voters. It aims to provide a platform for their voices, fostering dialogue and engagement as Ghana approaches a crucial or critical juncture in its democratic journey. We'll be addressing those issues right after the break.